Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. Alright, so it's finally time for me to talk about Marvel once again. I think my last Marvel video was, my video on the Fantastic Four, which, if you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. So, you might be wondering, why is the intro to this video a thumbnail of a video from that a completely different YouTuber made? Well, because this video has kind of gave me inspiration to make this video, this video. So, the video in question is the MCU villain problem, the full collection, from the channel Braden Alberti. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but the video basically breaks down every single villain in the MCU. Well, up to when that video was released anyway, which ends with the villain from Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And it goes over just how much of a waste they were, how most of them were just really disappointing, and how much better they could have been. Even gives some ideas how he had to just restructure the MCU in general. Now, he doesn't go that in depth, but watching it got me thinking that, I like a lot of old Marvel comics, watch some Marvel TV shows. What would I do if I were the one structuring the MCU? Now, I'm not going to completely change it because I have no idea where I'd even begin with that, but I'm basically just going to go through the first phase of the MCU and give some ideas for how I would have done things differently. Some movies will have more changes than others. So, I'll also say this really quickly. I would recast some characters, but I don't know who I'd recast them with because the only live action actors I know are the ones who appear in animated movies as celebrity castings. And I don't even know what most of those people look like. So without further ado, let's do it to it and dive on in. Okay, so Iron Man, the very first MCU film. I would not really change anything about Iron Man, honestly. It's tied with one other film we'll get to as my favorite MCU film, and it's still an 8 out of 10. Like, I still think it's really good. It's just, I couldn't call it a masterpiece, unfortunately, but still. Iron Man is a very good film that I like a lot, and it was a really good start to the MCU. Because what does it do right? It does what more of these films should have done, which is it takes the character's origin story and just brings it into the modern day. It isn't trying to completely overhaul the character of Iron Man. Yes, Robert Downey Jr. plays Tony Stark more comedic than he is, but he is still played seriously in multiple scenes, and I appreciate that. His costume, while it does not look the same as the comic, it still looks like you can tell, yeah, this is what it was actually based on the comics armor, and it looks cool. I mean, his costume looks real. Like, it has a real helmet before they started making CGI helmets, which I can't stand. The effects are really good. The film is pretty well paced, and yeah, it's his origin story. But instead of it being Tony Stark got captured in Vietnam, because it's 2008, not 1963, it's Tony Stark got captured in Afghanistan. But it's still the exact same story, basically. Tony Stark is captured in a war, is locked in a cave by terrorists to build weapons for them. This guy was also kidnapped, helped save Tony Stark's life, but, he has the whole issues with his heart and all that. He builds the gray armor to escape, and then Tony Stark becomes Iron Man. Now, I will say, one of the things that I do like the villain in this movie quite a lot. Tony Stark's evil partner, Obadiah Stane, is actually a good villain. There are a lot of really good scenes with him where you can learn exactly who this guy is. He doesn't feel like he's just shoehorned in there for the sake of having a villain. And him becoming a big gray blob at the end by, rebuilding Tony Stark's original armor actually does make sense. And also, I'm pretty sure he was an original character. I'm pretty sure he's the only original villain that the MCU has made. Then again, most of the MCU villains barely resemble their comic counterparts, but you know what I'm saying. I'm not entirely sure if he's original or not. I haven't checked, but he might be. And yeah, well, I wouldn't say I love this film or anything. I don't really know what I would change about it. I think it's just very solid and was a good start to the MCU. Okay, The Incredible Hulk. This is my other favorite MCU film. No, I'm not kidding. I really like The Incredible Hulk. Again, much like Iron Man, I wouldn't call it amazing, but I could never call this bad. Okay, I will make some changes, though. I think that Rick Jones should have been in this movie. Rick Jones is a character who is integral to the Hulk story, because most people probably don't even aren't even entirely sure what the Hulk's origin story is because the MCU never fully goes into it, and this movie was never that popular. In the MCU, his origin is Bruce Banner was a college professor who injected himself with the Gamma Serum and turned him into the Hulk. And that is not his origin. His origin is Bruce Banner was a Gamma scientist working on a Gamma bomb for the military. But as it was about to go off, he saw this teenager, Rick Jones, sitting around in his car playing a harmonica, saying he was there on a bet. As Bruce Banner rushes to the kid's aid and pushes him away, he's able to push the kid into the protective bomb trench. But the bomb goes off and the radiation affects Bruce Banner and turns into the Hulk. And then Rick Jones, seeing that this guy saved his life, he helps Bruce Banner. For a long time, he's the only one who knows that Bruce Banner is the Hulk, because the Hulk used to have a secret identity. And he travels around with Bruce Banner. He's helping him. Rick Jones is a really important character. He wasn't even just the Hulk sidekick. He was Captain America's sidekick. In the 80s, he was Rom's sidekick. You guys probably don't even know who Rom is. He was Captain Marvel at one point. Rick Jones is basically everywhere for a long time. And he's just never in the MCU. Now, I still do like a lot of the stuff they did with Bruce Banner in this film. He's a guy on the run, constantly trying to get different jobs. Seems like he might even be changing his identity at some points. He's just trying to escape General Ross, and the guy that got to play General Ross looks like him. He acts like him. I also do actually think the Abomination in this movie is a good villain. Yes, I wish they had changed his design to be more comic accurate, because he just looks like a grayish, greenish blob monster, but at least the final battle was cool and I could actually tell what was going on. So yeah, again, there isn't a ton I'd change for the Incredible Hulk, but I would put Rick Jones in this movie and I would have him, just be the only guy who is traveling around with Bruce Banner because he trusts him. And the film basically played out the same. Betty Ross meets up with Bruce, except Rick is there too. And they meet up with Samuel Stearns, who there's a scene at the end where his head grows big and it's setting up the leader. Except this time the leader would actually go somewhere, except I'll save that for if I do a part 2, which I probably will. So yeah, not really much I would change about The Incredible Hulk, but what I would change, I am just so mad the movie did not turn out like that. Okay, maybe thinking Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., isn't that some TV show? Yes, but I am saying that this is what we should have gotten instead of Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 should have been saved for later. Because one of the problems I have with the MCU's first phase is that we never got real introductions to Hawkeye and Black Widow. Because, okay, Iron Man got 2 solo films. Captain America got one, Thor got one, Hulk got one. Hawkeye got a cameo and Black Widow was shoved into Iron Man 2 for the sake of setting up a cinematic universe. And Nick Fury is... he's there as much as he needs to, but I'm saying we need to get something real. Give us an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. movie. So, back in the 60s, and I guess even after that, Nick Fury had his own comic series called Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., which, by the way, he was not the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's not a huge problem if he is or isn't. I don't really care. It's just that he wasn't. Just going to point that out. So, also, you may be wondering, hey, why isn't Nick Fury a bald black guy? Because, no, that's how he looked in the Ultimate comic, which the movie took inspiration for some reason. Like, why didn't they make him look how he did in the 60s, how he still looks in modern-day Marvel comics? That's how he looked in the 90s cartoon. I don't know why they changed it for some reason. I guess they just wanted Samuel L. Jackson. Also, more importantly, the MCU completely abandoned Nick Fury's ties to World War II. This is before he even was a spy, because that only happened because spy movies were popular at the time, so Marvel said, oh, let's make a comic where Nick Fury is a spy. But originally, Nick Fury appeared in this comic called Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos. Since it was the 60s and these were published, you could say, oh, it's just been, 20 years since World War II? So, Nick Fury had fought in World War II as a sergeant in charge of a commando squad. Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos is one of my favorite Marvel comics. All the Howling Commandos ever get are a couple cameos here and there, which is just really disappointing. I mean, Earth Mightiest Heroes at least said that Nick Fury's father was Sergeant Fury, but the MCU just says, no, there was never a Sergeant Fury. That tangent aside, so yeah, I want this movie to focus on Nick Fury. Let us learn stuff about his character. Give us some ties to World War II. Maybe you'll talk about that. Maybe you might be wondering, how could Nick Fury be alive and be young if he fought in World War II? In the comics, they say he drank some kind of magical elixir or something. We can abandon that. Let's just say his grandfather fought in World War II. But also, yeah, you gotta give Hawkeye and Black Widow something to do here. Establish them as characters. Give them more of a role instead of just what they ended up getting in the first phase of the MCU. Like, take some inspirations from Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which was actually being produced at the same time as this, so I'm pretty sure actually Earth's Mightiest Heroes took inspiration from the MCU, but aside from having Hawkeye and Black Widow as shield agents, they basically did their own thing with those characters in that show. But yeah, so have it be about these three mainly, and you're going to ask, who are they going to fight? Well, in the comics, Nick Fury would fight Hydra. Maybe we could see him fight Hydra against Baron Strucker or something. Maybe you can have the villain be Taskmaster. I don't know. I just came up with that once because Taskmaster does appear in the MCU and he was completely ruined. So yeah, I'm not really entirely sure what I would do for this movie. I just know that this is what we should have gotten because Iron Man 2 was just not something we needed at this time, and if we got this instead, it would have done a better job setting up for the Avengers. Okay, Thor. Thor is a pretty disappointing movie. Okay, I think the biggest problem with this movie is just that it is dull. Like, so much of this movie just takes place in some small town in New Mexico. Thor is this mystical, magical character. We should be getting to see a bunch of Asgard, even if a lot of it is set in New Mexico. Now, you might be saying, well, wouldn't that cost too much to make? I mean, these movies are still pretty new. So I say, adjusted for inflation, Lord of the Rings movies cost less to make than this movie did when it came out. So, I'm sure they could have done a little more with Asgard. Also, I'm going to focus this mostly on Thor himself rather than the plot, but Thor in the MCU is just, he is not Thor. The video I mentioned earlier that inspired me to make this, the MCU villain problem, that guy also did a video called the MCU Thor problem. What is the problem with Thor in the early films? He is boring. He's not an annoying comic relief character like he turns into, but he's not the guy who gives these big, grandiose speeches, who speaks in big words like he does in the comics, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, some old video games, some of the cartoons. That was just how Thor was characterized. But then the MCU changed it for some reason to make him some boring guy who just walks around and does stuff, I guess. I mean, also, he should not have a beard. Thor is not supposed to have a beard. You might say, isn't that a super nitpicky detail? I would say, no, it isn't. Because if you're going to bring a character to mass audiences, wouldn't you want the character to look like the character? It's not like it's not like, oh, it's only in the comics he doesn't have a beard. In all adaptations, he doesn't have a beard. Even adaptations past the MCU. Now, you might be thinking this is a stupid tangent. Maybe it is, but I don't think it is. Also, Thor should have a helmet. He usually has a helmet. It's a signature part of his look. And he has a helmet for 5 seconds, so why would they give it to him just for 5 seconds? That's like if you changed the design of Sonic's shoes, or you gave Sonic his classic shoes for 10 seconds and then said, oh, he got new ones and they don't look anything like his classic shoes. Why would you do that? So I think the idea, back to the plot of Thor, I think the idea of it having be Thor gets banished from Asgard and has to learn humility on Earth and all that and interact with humans. Keep that. Good plot. We also have to make some changes to that plot. So, in the comics, Jane Foster is a nurse. Because in the comics, Thor has his secret identity where he can change into a human named Dr. Don Blake, and he's a doctor, and they work together. And the whole point is that Jane Foster is just a normal human, but Thor's in love with a normal human, even though he's this magical demigod man. Now, since there is no Dr. Don Blake, and he doesn't need to be here, I think it might be a little too complicated. You could, instead of making Jane Foster a nurse, what did the MCU do? They decide to make her a scientist, as if there aren't enough Marvel super geniuses already. In Earth's Mightiest Heroes, because, yeah, that show is really good, that's why I reference it so often, that show did a great job modernizing Marvel. So, in that show they decided, okay, if Jane can't be a nurse, what should she be? Logical step, a paramedic. In that show, Thor meets her while she and this other paramedic guy are trying to treat people who got attacked by supervillains. So Thor meets her while she's being attacked by a supervillain. We could do something like that. Thor falls to Earth or something when he gets banished from Asgard, he gets injured, and Jane Foster's his paramedic, and he meets up with her and her friends, and they teach him about Earth and all that. That would be cool. And then, yeah, so, uh, what else? The Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, should be an actual rainbow bridge and not a see-through bridge with some little sparkles in it. Like, that was pathetic. I think Loki is played decently here, but he's supposed to have all these crazy illusion magical powers. So why doesn't he have them? When Thor and Loki fight at the end, they just make sparkles when their weapons clash. Thor should be shooting him with lightning. Loki should be running away, casting all sorts of crazy illusions. Or, when the Frost Giants are in this movie? You probably don't even remember them. The Frost Giants are supposed to be these giants that are made of ice. In the movie, they are just slightly taller than average blue guys, like the characters from James Cameron's Avatar. Like, who came up with that decision? This movie is it's really disappointing. It could have been so much better, but notice how I didn't completely change the plot of this. Like, I still think doing some things like having the Destroyer show up at the end is a good idea. Having it be about Thor learning humility is a good idea. But also, I think you could. What my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. movie that I pitched would actually make Hawkeye's cameo here better. Because you aren't just seeing some random character thinking, huh, that guy's kind of funny, and then you're just expected to care about him in the next movie. No, you'd already know who he is, so when you see him get a cameo, you'd be thinking, huh, that's cool, I like that guy. I wonder if he's going to do some more in the next movie. Yeah, that's, I think, would be a far better writing decision. Look, I'm not some professional writer, but I think I could have made a better ideas for this movie. Anyway, I don't know. Captain America: The First Avenger. So the second video I ever did was me complaining about this movie and saying how it could have been better. Now that isn't a very good video since it's my second video, but I still stand by a lot of what I said there. This is a good movie. Like, it's a 7 out of 10, but I think is the most disappointing entry in the MCU. There was so much potential for this. A Captain America movie set in World War II, and you get to fight alongside the Howling Commandos and all that stuff. That's really cool. And the movie is just kind of a waste. For starters, Chris Evans should not have played Captain America. Captain America is supposed to be this guy who has this powerful voice. He's able to give inspiring speeches. Kind of like Thor, except he doesn't speak like a Shakespearean character. The problem is that Chris Evans just sounds like some dude. He never really acts like Captain America. Yeah, he keeps the whole "I can do this all day" thing, which is how Captain America should be characterized, but other than that, he just doesn't really feel like the same character. Also, why did they have to ruin his costume? What is the MCU's obsession with changing Captain America's costume? In this movie, it is covered in brown straps and all that stuff. His helmet looks more like a biker helmet. Same for most of the MCU. In The Winter Soldier, they just straight up removed the red from his costume. The whole point of his costume is that it looks like a red, white, and blue American flag. He's called Captain America. Also, Bucky should be young. Like, the whole point of Bucky is that he's Captain America's young sidekick. Also, why did they have to make the Red Skull a twist? His name is the Red Skull. That is his identity. But the movie has to spend half of it where he looks like a normal human, and then he pulls off his face mask, and his face is really red. That is like if you decided to... Okay, what's a good comparison? Okay, how about you say the Rhino from Spider-Man? He is a giant guy, but he is dressed in a costume that makes him just look like he's a huge man. But then it turns out he's in a costume, and he actually has a rhino suit underneath. Like, what is the point of that? Also, they only call him the Red Skull once. And it's not even by Captain America. The entire rest of the movie, they call him his real name, Johann Schmidt. Like, get out of here with that. That's stupid. He's called the Red Skull. That'd be like if they just called Doc Ock Otto Octavius and only called him Dr. Octopus one time. Will say this, though. The guy who played the Red Skull, Hugo Weaving, did a really good job. He voiced Megatron in the first 3 Michael Bay Transformers movies. He's a good actor. Good casting. And yeah, I think there are some good ideas in this film. Um, I think having it be the Red Skull discovers the Cosmic Cube, which is not called the Cosmic Cube for some stupid reason. I bet that name would just be too cool for these movies, huh? But anyway, he discovers that. He uses to power Hydra, who, by the way, do not look threatening because they're all just wearing completely black. Hydra is supposed to wear green and yellow, when they just look like a big black blob of nothing. This movie is such a disappointment. I also think that, yeah, when you show the Howling Commandos, show all of them. You can just put them in the whole montage, but don't just show some of them. If you're going to show the Howling Commandos, you have to commit to it. They are a cornerstone of Marvel's history, and they just always get ignored. But yeah, other positives about this movie, I really like the main theme. I also do like the whole Star Spangled Man with the plan sequence. It's a great song, and yeah, the movie does a good job capturing the look of the 40s, and that scene has Captain America actually wear a comic accurate costume. Yeah, the mask looks a little silly, but I'm sure they could have made it look good. Couldn't you just dress like that for the whole MCU and you say, but it's too cartoon. Oh, shut up. Too cartoony. That is what Captain America looks like. If you're not going to make Captain America look like Captain America, why even bother with making him putting him in a movie? Okay, I know it sounds like I'm just complaining so much, but really, I do think this is a good movie. I really like the guy played by Tommy Lee Jones. I just thought he was really funny. Yeah, I've probably spent the longest on this movie compared to all the others, but just yeah, this is really disappointing. And what's sad is that this is one of the best entries in the MCU, and this is 7 out of 10. Anything? I don't have anything else to add. Maybe I will think of something later, but okay. Before I continue, I'd like to, if you've made it this far in the video, check my Letterboxd and serialized accounts. I'll link in the description. And yeah, let's continue. Okay, the Avengers. So the team lineup we got. Okay, we got them set up, and that's the team lineup we'll have. Some quick changes though. For one, I guess this applies to his earlier appearances, but shouldn't Hawkeye actually look like Hawkeye? Where's his cool purple costume? That's what Hawkeye looks like. Also, this movie kind of gives Captain America an accurate costume, but seems like they intentionally made it look kind of weird. And the pattern on the front of his costume is supposed to continue onto the back, but it just doesn't for some reason. Okay, anyway though, the problems with this movie is that it is just too comedic. Like, it isn't as bad as some other later entries in the MCU with the comedy, but you can tell that this is what started it. So, some things I do like. The Hulk is treated as this huge deal. He's super powerful and strong and scary. Well, Loki still doesn't get to use his illusion powers, really. He does act more like Loki's. We see him try to turn the Avengers against each other by manipulating them, using mind control, using a fake clone trick of himself, which is pretty cool. This movie is clearly trying, but it has other issues too, like the fact that the Chitauri just get defeated because their ship gets destroyed, which doesn't really make any sense because they're not robots, they're organic aliens. Why don't you just have them get defeated or just have them retreat or something? I don't know, you can do either one of those. Also, Captain America is treated like a loser in this film. He's supposed to be the leader of the Avengers and he doesn't really do anything. It's pathetic. He gets beaten up in one scene by some random dude. He is a super soldier. He's supposed to be the peak level a human being can be at. Though anything else I'd change. I mean, yeah, I guess the plot itself is pretty good, ideas wise anyway, barring the things I would change. But yeah, other than that, I think this movie is a good plot. Just could have been executed a fair bit better. Oh, also, they should not have recast the Hulk. The guy they got to play him is just not good. Sorry, but I really don't like Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. Anything else? I think that's about it, actually, yeah. So, here, the first phase of the MCU will be mostly the same. But there's one more thing I would change that I've been saving till now to talk about. And that is the post-credit scenes. So, of this movie anyway, I've been waiting to get to this one for it. Do you know how this movie ends with the tease of Thanos, setting him up for the big bad of the saga? I'm not going to do Thanos. I'm going to take a cue from that video that inspired me to make this and say that this movie should be setting up Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet and all that. I want the big endgame level movie that we'll eventually get to be a movie where the Avengers fight the Masters of Evil. The Masters of Evil are basically the evil Avengers, so this movie would set up Zemo at the end. See him have some kind of scene where he's looking at footage of all the superheroes doing stuff, and he sees that where there are superheroes, there are also supervillains. He sees that Captain America's alive and all that. He's thinking, hey, if I want to get my revenge on I want to get my revenge on Captain America, but he's got this whole team of superheroes to back him up. I should assemble my own team of supervillains, which will be set up more in Phase 2 with post-credit scenes. So yeah, I do want to make a video. Oh, the picture I got kinda didn't work. Anyway, though, if you made it this far, I'm sure you don't care. So, yeah. I really enjoyed making this, and I probably will cover Phase 2 of the MCU, which will have more changes than this one did. Now, you might be wondering, am I going to do Phase 3 and 4? I'll do Phase 3, have that big finale, but I don't know if I'll go anywhere near past that, because, again, I'm trying to base this off of what we did get, and just make some changes to what we already have, but I feel like once you start getting to Phase 4, I really just have to make stuff up, and because there isn't really much good basis in Phase 4, yeah, I don't think anyone really wants the Marvels. So yeah, comment down below what you thought of that. Remember to stay way past cool.